Hi everybody, I'm Heisey, and this is a first impressions video for Shin Ultraman, which we saw at the New York Asian Film Festival. I kind of didn't do an introduction to this video, so this is the introduction. My question always, and my search in this kind of stuff, is always to kind of think about what does this actually mean for somebody who does not care or watch Tokusatsu or do any of that stuff. You know, you're fairly blind outside of having to listen to me talk about it. So as far as just being a base movie, normal casual viewer instead of a fan, how did that feel for you?
It felt good. It felt long, and I kind of hate to say that, but it felt long. It felt like there was lots of fights, and at one point I was just like, is this the last fight? Is this the last one? Who's the bad guy? And they said in the conversation afterwards that the dialogue is extremely fast. Even for Japanese speakers, it is so fast. And I'm kind of a slow reader. And there was moments where I was like, I'm just not going to gain half the dialogue. And that's okay. I got the gist. I knew what was going on. One of the things that stuck out to me as someone who doesn't watch Ultraman very much is I really loved his mask. And there's a slight smirk constantly. So there's a scene where he is getting pummeled by, what are the underground people? Little the
Kaiju?
Yeah. So he's getting pummeled almost.
Kaiju means monster.
Kaiju, thank you. And he's kind of grinning about it. He's just like... And I just thought that was really funny. And there's these very serious scenes where it goes over to Ultraman and he's just... There's just a slight smile constantly, which I kind of appreciate. It was endearing.
So fact with that is, and I don't know the name of the mask, but it's actually a historic theater style mask.
That's cool.
It's not a kabuki. It is based off a specific mask. It's not actually, but the way it's made is so that the original Ultraman from the 70s was, if you light it and look at it from different angles, the way the features are made will look different and cast different types of shadows in order to make a larger array of emotion. So as you move the head around, you get a bunch of different looks in it, but that also means it has a permanent smirk.
It's kind of a smirk,
and no lips. And I did think that was something there's an enemy in the movie that when he speaks has some lights going. But most things, it's just you got two Ultramen talking to each other, and then it's just
they're just smirking at each other.
They're just staring at each other because there's no actual mouths on Ultraman, which I'm glad they kept. I wouldn't have liked it with that, but it was definitely a thing. All right, so Truman, give your Ultra background. Scoot up here a little bit.
A lot of Ultraman VHS rentals from Blockbuster back in the day, between that and old Godzilla movies, and it's shit's right up my alley. But honestly, it started out really good, but I think by the end it kind of petered out for me. Also, low-key hilarious at points.
Oh yeah.
Well, I found it really funny.
I found it funny.
It was so funny.
There were some,
not a bad way either.
There were some things. There were some things that were a little Chucky here and there as it went through, particularly 20-foot story ladies showing up out of fucking nowhere.
Lots of butt hitting.
A lot of butt smacks, but there was a lot of
voyeurism.
a lot of jokes at the military-industrial complex and grabs for world power, which didn't particularly bother me, but it was interesting because Shinji Higuchi spoke before the movie went, and since this was the first North American showing, he apologized in advance for having a negative portrayal of Americans, which I found particularly enlightening. But I did think that the jokes that were planned to be as jokes actually landed really well, and they worked as jokes. There was I laughed at most of the jokes that they had, and when they came up well. But I also agree that it feels long, and it feels like it covers the span of what could feel like an Ultraman miniseries or something, because it starts off, there's a lot of fighting with less intelligent, kaiju, your traditional, four-legged kaiju monsters that, are more reminiscent of animals than something humanoid. And then as they go, they get more sentient extraterrestrials in there. So it's a lot more in the vein of just, this man and intellect dominating itself and getting to the point where it's kind of fighting itself back. I think as a movie, it generally was a really good movie overall. For a Toho fan, I think it works really well. As just a regular movie, I think it lacks some setup and payoff. But
it had a good story, but I do think I want to like soak in it a little bit. I want to like think about it for a bit and just kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta come watch it on Monday.
Give it another viewing. No, and I mean, this is more of a first impression anyway, right? Like, we're not letting anything soak in. We just watched it like an hour ago. So it's still all pretty fresh.
The redundancy of an invisible kaiju, I never would have thought would be a topic of discussion. But you know what? It hit every joke about it hit me right in the stomach every time.
There was a lot of jokes about how there's only kaijus attack in Japan. It's not a international matter, and all the other countries don't care about helping Japan. They just want to sell them weapons to defend themselves from kaiju. They don't actually want to get involved. And that might echo a little more in today's climate than it was when it was probably written.
Yeah.
So, that was a shot, but it kind of landed, but it kind of poked fun at it being a Japan first movie, because it is very much speaking about social days with Japan, and I'd probably have to think more about what I found it to be saying in the long run, but like, it had stuff to say. From a point of view of being just an Ultraman fan, I think it maybe struggles a little bit between the line of like straight homage and doing something new with itself, because it feels like it's like a little scared to go too far outside of the box one way or the other. But it definitely works as like a big homage to it. Some things that I would like, there was some, I'm gonna just segue to design. Brian being you, I'm gonna keep picking on you first. What is like CG creature design, Ultraman, like, as somebody who hasn't been staring at Japanese computer designed creature design for the last like 6-7 years of their life, like, how does that hit you when you first see it?
Well, I almost feel like I can't be unbiased, because I listen to you complain about CGI all the time. So whenever I see it, I'm in my head while I'm watching. I'm just like, I wonder if Chris is gonna like this. But it didn't bother me at all. I thought it was the only part that kind of did was the first kaiju. That one, I felt like when the electricity and stuff, that bothered me a bit. But when they were like fighting the other extraterrestrial, like Ultramans, or like the other bad guys, the more like humanoid, I guess they were, the less I was bothered by CG.
Yeah.
Almost.
I mean, I think it kind of fell away a lot.
It did. It fell away a lot, yeah.
There was something where, a lot of the environment stuff and big environment shots would be full CG scenes, so they weren't hitting quite as much on the, it's not clashing as much, but anytime you would have like Ultraman interacting with something a little more directly, I'd feel a little out of it. But Truman.
Well,
speak.
Look, the CG.
Speak of truth.
The CG was very, very far away from the Tokyo crosswalk CG of my nightmares. But when you're not doing practical effects, you lose the weight of hits and stuff like that. So, look, I didn't mind the CG because I've seen some really, really terrible CG between animating and live action, just anything really. It did pretty well. Also, I just want to say you can tell that Hideaki Anno's grubby little fingers were all over design and just everything, every part of this. I mean, it is as much his as like everyone else's.
Yeah, I mean, he's writing it. I'm sure he's specifically helping guide a lot of those things, so a lot of those trademarks are there. I will say once the other big alien revealed themselves, what I'm going to call I guess second to last big battle there.
The angel? I'm sorry. I immediately saw that thing. I was like, "That's an angel." I'm watching Ava.
Yeah. No, and if you're Evangelion, it's hard to separate that because there's just so many hallmarks there.
Is it the one in the sky?
I was talking about the one in
the
the oil field or whatever was happening.
Yeah, okay.
He just that character design, which I feel like was supposed to look kind of like Boltan as like a classic ultra villain. It looked too angular but out of place. Like Ultraman is at least humanoid enough and has like his weird lanky arms and fingers and stuff that it fits. It has a style that feels like kind of organic still.
Where it's uncanny as opposed to unnatural.
Yeah. And the other thing just felt like it was like, this doesn't feel like these shapes go together. Like it felt like it had this like kind of cool robotic-ish looking head, and then everything else kind of felt thin and not there. And it didn't feel like it moved in, like everything moves really fast. And compared to an Ultraman TV show or something, right, where everything's like recorded at a dramatically reduced speed so that all the movements have like a lot of weight to them and a lot of bang and boom. So when they're fighting, they're throwing punches, and then those punches are hit and making their sparks. Everything feels like it's kind of underwater and a little weighty, where it felt like a lot of these fight scenes felt like they were almost too quick, and they would do flips, and like sometimes they would be hilarious flips.
I just had a question / aha moment. So, and I might be comparing this to Godzilla and just the Godzilla movies I've seen. Is there, in Ultraman, is he supposed to defeat multiple villains? Is that his thing, where he defeats multiple villains throughout most of his videos?
I mean, he can. It's.
I guess I kept looking for like the main villain, and they kept having like another villain that was another step higher, and another villain, and it just felt like at some point I was like, well, who's the real villain?
Well, I think that's like a carryover from the episodic nature.
Right,
okay,
and that's what I mean. Where it kind of feels like from a story perspective, it was kind of stretching like the ideas of what would happen in an Ultraman, like I'd say miniseries, because not quite a full series, because it stretches from like, hey, smaller kaiju Ultraman showing up and punching some stuff, to hey, these are bigger threats, and it had a lot of story beats that felt like they would, you could pluck those story beats out and stretch them into a long form TV show or just a, Monster of the Week Tokusatsu series. And like they had weight to them as far as like their individual stories.
Yeah.
But I feel like it spent so much time on each of those individual stories, because it does take time in those stories of like, Ultraman fighting, some more beastly kaiju, to Ultraman fighting things that are a little more humanoid and can talk back and, elaborate on their grand plans and have alien plots for Earth that Ultraman has to defend from. And I feel like that takes a lot more of it just takes screen time, right? It's developing like any one of those things could have been a its own movie,
which takes away from some of the character building, which is what I like the most.
Right. And it does. I think it does, which is it makes certain aspects of it feel just a little thin, because it's like the ultimate one, when you finally kind of figure out like, what's this ultimate big bad, and it's, you know, which even then is a little murky at best, because there's kind of like, here's a big bad, and now here's a more inward looking big bad. So it gets like hard to even like separate just in the final like 15-20 minutes, because it's like all of a sudden we have a new ultimate threat to humanity, and it's like we just keep accelerating that, but at some point it feels like it lost its story due to all of those changes, because they just kind of happen. You know, you go from like, oh, what, you know, and the whole time you have the humans plot and their bureaucracy and going through chains of command and stuff. It's all hitting points where they're like, but what's like Ultraman, nature of Ultraman, other countries are going to want this power, but, you know, it feels like that kind of spins its wheels a lot, instead of finding a place to, I don't know, call home with it, right? Like, it's like, by the end of the movie, it's like a lot of those plot lines die from like attrition, and it's never like, oh, we solved this problem. It's just, we're just not going to deal with this problem any longer, and the movie's moving on. So it's like, you know, like it's not without any resolution, but the resolution that is there isn't super satisfying all the time.
I got 3 words: weaponized giant waifus. Amazing.
So if you like 20-foot tall women, this is the movie for you.
Not I. Not I. At all. Definitely don't get down with that.
That was fun though. That was a fun part. Again, the humor was spot on.
The humor worked, and I mean, I'm super interested to see where it keeps going, and I think this was a fun, again, for an Ultraman fan, it's like I didn't necessarily need that much more from a world building perspective, but I feel like as a casual fan, the world buildings that there kind of gets fired at you in these like really super dense exposition drops, and it's like, okay, I think I understood what happened, but maybe not really.
It can get a little overwhelming.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, and it does set itself up for like a sequel and stuff like that, and I think it's supposed to have an Ultra 7 movie and a Return of Ultraman movie, but it's, you know, it does a good job at setting itself up, but, you know, I think some of it is to the detriment of this movie itself. I'm going to point out that it also made some Godzilla jokes in the opening.
Beginning.
The opening.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah. Because it's like, I'm not sure if it was supposed to be a play off Shin Godzilla, of like, hey, Shin Godzilla's awakened all these other kaiju, because again, it kind of rapid fire hits you, and we're in a theater. Bring that up. Seeing it in this venue. Because, you know, we're seeing it in its first American showing, very much with Ultraman fans. Ultraman hats, Ultraman shirts, Eva shirts, saw some Kamen Rider swag in there. Like,
I mean, I think it really does lend itself to like a big screen type of thing.
oh, this thing died.
There we go.
It's alright, I'm gonna use
The
that.
CG looks good on the big screen, in my opinion. I don't know. It's I guess some people would see it and then they would like see the flaws, but with something bombastic like this, it's always cool to see something blow up on a big screen.
On a big, yeah. I agree.
I'm a simple man.
I'm a simple man with simple explosions.
As someone who's kind of an outsider, being in that auditorium with other people laughing and enjoying it, that kind of heightened my excitement as well. You know, kind of being surrounded by other people. So that was nice.
Yeah, I think it makes it really fun to have that, because there was a higher energy level than I would say is in like a normal like or a normal just movie screening.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you know, you weren't surrounded by like the general public, you were surrounded by people who really wanted to be here. And that's my first experience of something kind of like in that level. So I found that really interesting in how it kind of like colored the time I was having, because it was like just seeing Ultraman, you just got people like cheering as loud as they possibly can, and anytime he would show up. And as part of the response, I'd say Shinji Higuchi was just like, yeah, Japanese people don't respond that loud, so it's really fun to see an American audience that's really just going for it and giving their reactions and being loud about it. So that, that's cool. But I will say that something that it was in a full surround sound, and there was something about watching something Toku related that's not on like my computer screen or my home video system, that's just I'm getting the effect of subwoofers, I'm getting the effect of people slamming doors, and I'm hearing it behind me, and I really don't have much more to say about it outside of like it's a cool way to experience something Toku related, opposed to just having this small screen experience with kind of this small traditional stuff. So I thought that part was pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely.
The girl next to me was really into it, and that was fun just to kind of like and I think she even spoke a little bit of Japanese, so she could understand like some of the questions she started reacting to before the translator translated it. So like there were moments where I was just like, she made it more fun, honestly, for me. Yeah. Because she was really into it.
Cool. So, all right. Any closing thoughts from Truman?
I wasn't expecting anything super crazy, because I saw Shin Godzilla. It was good. I liked it, but it turned out to be a lot. I was pleasantly surprised, and honestly, I'll bring it back again. The humor, it really hit, and it made it that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, and it never hit in a way that I found
it wasn't like
distracting, right, or belittled.
They were
its
hamming
source.
it up, but they were like, they were getting some good chirps in.
Yeah, and I'd say a lot of the humor that was there was kind of placed in a way that was like almost like lore friendly. Like they took the joke seriously, and that's why the joke was funny. Was because it's like, this is a ridiculous scenario, right? This is a ridiculous fantasy that we're crafting, and we're taking it so seriously and pointing out the dumb things like, well, why does Godzilla keep destroying Tokyo?
When everyone plays it straight like that, it's I don't know, it's very dry, and it kills every time.
Brienne.
I liked it, and I don't really remember much about Shin Godzilla, but I feel like I enjoyed Shin Godzilla a little bit more. Probably just because I know a little bit more lore than I do for the Ultraman series. But I liked them. It was fun. I'm glad we went to this experience. This experience was fun. Coming to New York for the day.
Coming on a 5-hour trip to go watch a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I don't want to necessarily line this up next to Shin Godzilla. Like, obviously they're going to be compared. They're directly next to each other. They're same studio, got the Shin moniker. But I think this was a fun movie. I think if I was comparing the two, I liked this one a little bit more. I felt like it was able to kind of capture the essence of what I like about Tokusatsu, which is the ridiculous nature of it, kind of mixed with a serious storytelling. The one question I kind of had been asking myself through a lot of it was, is this something that could have been shown as a like Saturday morning Toku series? Like, could this story still have just as much weight, with this level of production value, but still be like kid and family friendly? And I think ultimately kind of yes. Like, I don't feel like this was aged up in any way that took the power away from the actual movie. So that's where I'm going to leave me.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. All right, yeah, let's do that. 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
What do you got?
I'd probably do like a 6 or 7.
6 or 7. I think I'm a Echo Truman. 8 out of 10. Mostly for a little bit of the disjointedness in the story, but overall, I think it was a good movie. If you're an Ultraman fan and it hopefully gets U.S. release then absolutely, please go see it. I think it's well worth your time. If you're a casual Toku fan, absolutely the same thing. If you're a general moviegoer, maybe.
I would still go see it.
Yeah, I'd say if you're a general like superhero person, if you're a Marvel or a DC person, like, yeah, go see it.
Even like Japanese films.
Yeah.
Do you like the Japanese culture? Obviously, you know Ultraman if you're a fan. So
Yeah. But if you're casual, I would say check it out. It's probably not going to give you a lot if you are just not familiar with this kind of movie, this kind of world. Like, I don't see this being very favorable to people who just really love or who just like movies and like film. I think it will be fun for some people. I think there's some extra layers there to dig into, but I probably don't think it's something that you would be dying to tell your friends to go see.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
cool.
Agreed.
All right. With that, thank you if you watched this 27 minutes of talking about a movie. Whatever.
Gigantic, weaponized waifus. Not into it, by the way.
I'm IC, and I hope you keep watching.